My name is Rachel Ellison, and I'm 38, a graphic designer scraping by in a quiet suburb just outside Chicago. I've been married to David for 12 years, a marriage built on routine more than romance, held together by shared responsibilities and our 9-year-old daughter, Mia, who inherited his dark curls and my sharp tongue. Our life was predictable, a steady hum of school runs and deadlines, until that night in late October 2024, when everything unraveled because I forgot to close the back door. It was a Thursday, the kind of crisp autumn evening that painted the air with the scent of damp leaves and distant bonfires. David was in Denver for a business conference, a trip he'd complained about for weeks, something about networking and stale coffee. Mia was asleep upstairs, her small frame curled under a quilt, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I'd been alone in the kitchen since dinner, my laptop open on the scarred oak table, the screen's blue light straining my eyes as I wrestled with a logo design due tomorrow. The clock ticked past midnight, and exhaustion pulled at me like a tide. I stood, stretching my aching back, and shuffled to the sink, rinsing my chipped coffee mug under a stream of lukewarm water. The kitchen window framed our modest backyard, a rectangle of patchy grass hemmed by a sagging wooden fence, the lone maple tree shedding crimson leaves onto the cracked patio stones. I didn't notice the back door then, its latch undone, the gap just wide enough to let in a draft. I'd let the cat out hours earlier, a gray tabby named Smokey who liked to prowl the night, and in my distraction, I'd forgotten to lock up. It was a careless slip, one I'd made before without a second thought. But that night, it was a crack someone slipped through. I flicked off the lights, plunging the house into shadow, and climbed the stairs, the wood creaking under my slippers. My mind buzzed with deadlines, Pantone swatches, client revisions, drowning out any hint of what was happening below. I didn't hear the faint scrape of the screen door, the soft tread of boots on the hardwood. I slid into bed, the sheets cold against my legs, and drifted into a shallow, restless sleep, oblivious to the stranger who'd entered my world. The next morning, Mia's alarm, a grating pop song she adored, jarred me awake at 7:03. I groaned, rubbing my eyes, and stumbled downstairs, the house still cloaked in pre-dawn chill. The coffee maker gurgled to life as I shuffled into the kitchen, but then I saw it. The back door swung wide open, the screen flapping in the breeze. My stomach lurched, a cold fist tightening around my chest. "Mia!" I called, my voice sharp, echoing up the stairs. She appeared at the landing, yawning, her pajamas rumpled. "Did you go outside last night?" "No," she mumbled, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Why?" I didn't answer, crossing to the door in 3 quick strides. The yard was still, no footprints in the dew, no broken branches, just the quiet drip of moisture from the maple. I slammed the door shut, twisted the lock, and leaned against it, my breath uneven. The wind, I told myself. It had to be. But the latch was stiff, the kind you had to yank to open, and a shiver ran through me. Something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the unease as I went through the morning, pouring cereal for Mia, packing her lunch, forcing a smile as she chattered about her science project. The open door gnawed at me, a splinter I couldn't pull out. I dropped her at school, the car's heater blasting against the October chill, and drove home, my hands gripping the wheel too tight. David wouldn't be back until tomorrow, and I was alone with this growing dread. Back in the kitchen, I brewed another coffee, the bitter smell grounding me as I replayed the night. Had I locked the door? I always did, habit from years of living alone before David. But last night, buried in work, I'd been careless. The what-ifs piled up. Someone could have walked in, seen Mia sleeping, taken something. I checked the house. Nothing missing, no muddy prints, just the ordinary clutter of our life. Still, my skin prickled. The day dragged on. I worked, picked up Mia, cooked spaghetti, but my mind stayed on that door. At 7:12 p.m., the landline rang, a shrill jolt in the quiet living room. Mia looked up from her math homework, pencil hovering. "Who's that?" she asked. "Probably a robocall," I said, crossing to answer. "Hello?" Silence greeted me, just a faint crackle, like someone holding their breath. "Hello?" I repeated louder. Nothing. I hung up, frowning, but 5 minutes later it rang again, same eerie quiet. My pulse quickened. I yanked the cord from the wall, muttering about telemarketers, but my hands were clammy, the room too warm. That night I checked every lock twice. Front door, windows, back door, before tucking Mia in. "Sleep tight," I said, kissing her forehead, but my voice sounded hollow. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the house too still. At midnight, a soft knock on the back door snapped me upright. 3 gentle taps, deliberate, chilling. I grabbed my phone, heart hammering, and tiptoed downstairs, the floor cold against my feet. The kitchen was dark, the door secure, but through the window I saw him, a tall figure in a dark jacket, cap shadowing his face, standing on the patio. I fumbled with 911, whispering my address, but he turned and slipped away before I finished. The next day, while Mia played upstairs, I found it, a note under the front door, scrawled in black ink. "I saw you with him." My knees buckled. Who had I been with? The note sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun, its jagged handwriting, "I saw you with him," branding itself into my brain. I hadn't slept after the midnight knock, spending the night on the couch, a blanket pulled tight around me, the TV flickering on mute to keep me company. Every rustle outside, the wind in the trees, a car down the street, sent my heart racing. Mia woke at dawn, her footsteps pattering overhead, and I dragged myself up, forcing normalcy for her sake. "Pancakes?" I asked, voice brittle as I cracked eggs into a bowl. She nodded, perched at the table with her sketchbook, drawing a lopsided cat. I watched her, the innocence in her scribbles a stark contrast to the fear coiling in my chest. Who was out there, and what had they seen? I hadn't been with anyone. David was gone, and my days were a blur of work and motherhood. Yet the note felt personal, a dagger aimed at my life. After dropping Mia at school, I returned home, the house oppressively quiet. David's flight was due at noon, but the hours stretched ahead, taunting me. I needed something, anything, to make sense of this. Coffee in hand, I rummaged through the hall closet, a chaotic pile of coats, scarves, and forgotten junk. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, proof I wasn't losing it, maybe. My fingers brushed a shoebox, dusty and taped shut, and I pulled it out, prying it open with a kitchen knife. Inside were relics of our past, ticket stubs, Mia's baby photos, a Polaroid from a summer 2 years back. My breath caught. It was us at a lake house David's parents owned, me in a sundress, Mia splashing in the shallows, David grinning with a beer. Behind us, half-cropped, stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, a baseball cap shadowing his face. Nick Carter, David's college buddy. He'd stayed that weekend, all easy smiles and old stories, but I remembered his eyes on me by the campfire. Intense, unsettling. I'd laughed it off then, chalked it up to too much wine, and David had waved it away. Nick left town after that, or so I'd thought. Was it him? The figure in the dark jacket matched. Same build, same cap. My stomach twisted. I shoved the photo into my pocket, the edges creasing, and paced the kitchen. If Nick was back, why now? And why me? The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden, and I jumped, coffee sloshing onto the floor. It was David, early, his suitcase thudding as he stepped inside, worry etched into his tired face. "Rach, what the hell's going on?" he asked, pulling me into his arms. I clung to him, but Nick's shadow loomed larger than ever. David's arms around me were warm, familiar, but the comfort felt brittle as I pulled back, the photo of Nick crumpled in my pocket. He dropped his suitcase by the door, his coat damp from a drizzle that had started outside, and ran a hand through his graying hair. "You look like hell," he said, his voice soft but edged with concern. "Tell me everything." I led him to the kitchen, the note still on the counter, its black ink stark against the white paper. "This came yesterday," I said, sliding it toward him, "after the back door was left open, after some guy knocked at midnight." His eyes scanned the words. I saw you with him, and his brow creased, a shadow crossing his face. What the hell? He muttered, setting it down like it burned. You saw someone? Why didn't you call me sooner? I did, I said, sharper than intended. You were half asleep in Denver, but it's more than that. Silent calls, that guy outside, and now this. It's not random, David. My hands trembled as I gripped the counter, the memory of that shadowed figure vivid. I locked everything last night, but he was back. He stepped closer, resting a hand on my shoulder. We need to call the cops, get a security system, something. This is insane. His tone was firm, practical, but I caught a flicker in his eyes, a hesitation that made my stomach twist. Who's him? I asked, voice low, watching him. I haven't been with anyone. Have you noticed anything weird lately? Anyone hanging around? David blinked, caught off guard. What? No, Rachel. You think I'd keep that from you? He shook his head, almost laughing, but it didn't reach his eyes. This is some creep playing games, that's all. I didn't buy it, not fully. Nick's face flashed in my mind, that campfire stare from 2 summers ago. What about Nick? I said, pulling the photo from my pocket and flattening it on the counter. Your friend from the lake house. Tall, cap, matches the guy I saw. He's been here before. David's gaze dropped to the picture, his jaw tightening. Nick? Come on, Rach. He moved to Ohio years ago. Why would he? I don't know, I cut in, frustration spilling over. But he was real friendly that weekend, wasn't he? Staring at me like I was some prize. You didn't care then, do you now? He bristled, stepping back. You're reaching. He's gone. This is someone else. Then who? I snapped, my voice rising. Because someone's out there, David, and you're brushing it off like I'm paranoid. I'm not! He shot back, louder now. But Nick, that's crazy. Let's deal with what's in front of us. I stared at him, doubt festering. He sounded sure, but was he? David's words echoed in the kitchen as he retreated upstairs to unpack, his footsteps heavy on the creaking stairs. I stayed behind, the photo and note side by side on the counter, their silent accusations louder than our argument. His dismissal of Nick felt too easy, a door slammed shut on a possibility I couldn't ignore. I needed more than his assurances. I needed proof. The house was still, Mia at a friend's house until dinner, giving me a rare pocket of solitude. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, the sharp aroma cutting through my fog of exhaustion, and sat at the table with my laptop. My fingers hesitated over the keys, guilt prickling at me, but the image of that man on the patio drove me forward. I started with Nicholas Carter, typing his name into every search bar I could think of. Facebook was a bust, his profile dormant since 2022, a grainy photo of him fishing the last post. LinkedIn offered nothing, no job updates, no location. He'd vanished from the digital world, or so it seemed. Then I turned to David's email. I knew his password, Mia's birthday, unchanged since we got the account, and logged in, my breath shallow. The inbox sprawled with work emails, spam, and grocery lists, a chaotic archive of our life. I searched Nick, scrolling back to that lake house summer. An email popped up, dated July 2022, from ncarter@gmail.com. Hey man, great weekend, it read. Rachel still got that fire. Lucky guy. Catch you later. David's reply was curt. Good seeing you too. Take care. Harmless maybe, but fire stuck in my throat, a word too intimate for a casual friend. I kept digging, heart pounding as I found another hit, 6 months ago. In town next week, Nick wrote. Drinks? Been too long. No reply from David, at least not here. Had they met? Why hadn't he mentioned it? The shower hissed upstairs, David oblivious to my betrayal of his privacy. I closed the laptop, palms sweaty, just as he came down, hair damp, a towel slung over his shoulder. You okay? He asked, pausing by the fridge, his voice softer now, like the fight had drained him too. Yeah, I lied, forcing a tight smile. Just thinking. He nodded, pulling out a soda. We'll get through this, Rach. I'll call a locksmith tomorrow. Better locks, cameras, the works. Great, I said, but my mind was elsewhere. That night, as he slept beside me, his snores steady, I lay awake, the house hushed. Then, at midnight, the back door rattled, a faint, deliberate shake that snapped me upright, eyes wide in the dark. The back door's rattle sliced through the midnight silence, a sound that yanked me from the edge of sleep. I bolted upright, sheets tangling around my legs, my pulse a frantic drum beat in my ears. David stirred beside me, groaning, "What's that?" as I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand. The screen glowed 12:02 a.m., casting a pale light across his bleary face. "Someone's at the door," I whispered, voice trembling. I slid out of bed, barefoot, the hardwood icy against my soles, and crept to the window. David followed, rubbing his eyes, his presence a shaky comfort. I peeled back the curtain, peering into the dark kitchen below. There he was, the man in the dark jacket, cap low, standing on the patio, his silhouette stark against the faint glow of a street lamp. "Jesus," David breathed, now fully awake, his hand gripping my arm. "That's him?" I nodded, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "There's someone outside my house," I hissed to the operator. "Back door, please, hurry." Her calm voice instructed me to stay put, lock ourselves in. But my eyes stayed glued to the figure. He raised a hand, knuckles hovering near the glass, then froze, head cocking as if he'd heard something. A dog barking down the street, maybe. He turned and bolted, disappearing beyond the fence just as sirens wailed in the distance. Police arrived within minutes, their flashlights slicing through the yard. Officer Hayes, a burly man with a buzz cut, knocked on the front door, and we let him in. Me in my robe, David disheveled beside me. "He's gone," Hayes said, notepad in hand. "No tracks. Wet grass hid them. You recognize him?" I handed over the note, recounted the calls, the open door, the knocks. David stood silent, arms crossed, until Hayes asked, "Any enemies? Exes?" I shook my head, but my gaze flicked to David. "Tell them about Nick," I said, voice low but firm. David sighed, exasperated. "Fine. Nick Carter. Old friend. He was in town 6 months ago. We met for drinks, he got weird, obsessed with Rachel. I cut him off. That's it." Hayes scribbled, nodding. "We'll check him out. Get cameras up tomorrow." They left, promising patrols, but the air between us crackled. I turned to David, eyes burning. "Why'd you hide that?" "I didn't want you scared," he said, defensive. He was drunk, rambling. Nothing happened. Before I could argue, my phone buzzed on the counter, a text from an unknown number. "Ask him about the hotel." My blood ran cold, and I shoved it in David's face, the question unspoken but screaming. The text, "Ask him about the hotel," glowed on my phone, its words a knife twisting in the quiet kitchen. The police had just left, their siren fading into the night, but the air between me and David was electric, charged with suspicion. I held the phone up, my hand trembling, the screen's light harsh against his pale face. "What's this, David?" I demanded, my voice raw. "What hotel?" He stared at the message, eyes widening, then flicked to me, a deer caught in headlights. "Rachel, He faltered, scrubbing a hand over his stubbled jaw, the silence stretching taut. "It's not what you're thinking." "Then what?" I snapped, stepping closer, the hardwood cold under my bare feet. "Nick's out there, leaving notes, texting me, and you're hiding something. Tell me the truth. Now." He exhaled sharply, shoulders sagging as if the fight had drained out of him. "Okay," he said, voice low, almost defeated. 6 months ago, Nick came to town. I met him at O'Malley's for drinks, old time's sake. He got wasted, started talking about you, how he'd always had a thing for you, how I didn't appreciate you. It was messed up. I told him to back off, paid the tab, and left. "And the hotel?" I pressed, my chest tight, the note's words. "I saw you with him," echoing in my skull. David winced, looking away. "I had a late client meeting that night, missed the train home. I booked a room at the Marriott downtown. Nothing fancy, just a place to crash. Nick followed me there, hammered, banging on the door, yelling about you. Said I'd stolen you from him. Some crazy delusion. Security hauled him out. That's it, Rachel, I swear. I stared at him, searching his face, the lines around his eyes, the tension in his mouth. For a lie. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked, anger and hurt spilling over. He's stalking me, David, and you kept it quiet? I thought he'd let it go, he shot back, louder now, pacing the kitchen. He was drunk, ranting. I didn't want you paranoid over nothing. I didn't know he'd come back. Nothing? I laughed, bitter and hollow. He's been at our door watching me, and you let me think I was imagining it. I slammed the phone down, the thud sharp in the stillness. David stopped, hands raised. I messed up, okay? I'm sorry. Before I could fire back, my phone buzzed again, a new text. He kissed her that night. My breath stopped. I thrust it at him, voice shaking. What's this? His face drained of color. That's a lie, he said, urgent. He tried, cornered me, rambled about you, but I pushed him off. Nothing happened, Rachel. Then why's he here? I whispered, doubt clawing at me as the back door rattled again, louder, angrier. The back door's violent thud jolted us both, shattering the fragile tension in the kitchen. David spun toward it, his face a mask of panic, while I clutched my phone, the latest text. He kissed her that night, still searing my vision. Stay here, he barked, grabbing a butcher knife from the block, its blade glinting in the dim light. I ignored him, dialing 911 again, my voice a hushed tremble as I reported, He's back, trying to get in. The operator's calm instructions. Lock yourselves in, wait, faded as the door shook harder, wood groaning under force. David edged closer, knife raised, and I followed, fear and fury warring in my chest. Through the window I saw him, Nick, cap off, hair wild, eyes bloodshot and manic. He pounded the glass, shouting, Tell her, David, tell her the truth. His voice was slurred, unhinged, a man unraveling. Get out! David yelled, banging the counter, but Nick kicked the door, the frame splintering. I gasped, stepping back as sirens wailed closer, red and blue lights flashing through the curtains. Nick froze, head whipping toward the sound, then lurched forward one last time, fist shattering the window pane. Glass sprayed inward and I screamed, ducking behind the table. Police burst through the front door seconds later, boots thundering as they tackled Nick on the patio. He thrashed, yelling my name, Rachel, he lied! Until cuffs snapped on, silencing him. An officer, Hayes again, stepped inside, flashlight sweeping the wreckage. You okay? He asked, eyeing the knife in David's hand. Yeah, I rasped, standing shakily. David dropped the weapon, pulling me close, but I stiffened, Nick's words echoing. Hayes found Nick's phone in the grass, a stream of unsent texts, all to me. He's a liar. You deserve better. I saw him with her. At the station, the story spilled out. Nick had fixated on me since that lake house summer, his crush twisting into obsession after David rejected his drunken advance at the hotel. He'd stalked us for months, convinced David had betrayed me with someone else. Delusional, Hayes called it, showing us Nick's arrest photo. Hollow eyes, a man broken by his own lies. David drove us home at dawn, the house quiet. Glass swept away. It's over, he said, his hand on mine, but I pulled back, staring out the window. In bed, his arm heavy around me, I lay awake, Nick's texts replaying, I saw him with her. Was it madness or truth David still hid? The door was locked now, Nick gone, but the crack in us remained, silent and deep, a shadow I couldn't escape.